Hello, welcome to LTM Reviews. You get you caught up on the oldest movies. Welcome back to my Warner Brothers animation marathon. We are now starting another one with SmallFoot. SmallFoot's kind of it's kind of tough to explain this movie, especially when I've only seen it twice. But basically, when I remember seeing the trailer for this when this first came out, I remember watching the first teaser trailer for it. It kind of looked pretty lame. It was like Hotel Transylvania, but with Yetis. That's what everybody got out of the trailer. And it's basically you got these Yetis. They live in the mountains, and they don't believe in humans, but there's actually humans down there. But then one Yeti, played by Channing Tatum, thinks there's Yetis out there, so he goes on a quest to find a Yeti, and he ends up finding a Yeti, or ends up finding a human, played by James Gordon, who is actually a TV show kind of guy, and he ends up fighting James Gordon's character, and he has to tell the others out there are actually humans out there. And yeah, it's that kind of movie. It's basically your run-of-the-mill kids movie. Though, to be fair, it's not a bad movie. In fact, I would probably say I actually prefer this movie, and this may be a little controversial, but I actually prefer this movie over Storks, which was a major improvement. I'm not going to count the Lego movies because let's be honest, the Lego movies are basically the king of Warner Brothers. But as far as standalone movies go, I would say SmallFoot did a much better job here than they did with Storks, at least as far as their premise goes. Let's get to the positives. What I do like about the movie is its animation. It's very solid, and it looks really nice in some parts. Some things do kind of look a little bit awkward, like some of the movements are a little cartoony, but much like Hotel Transylvania, they were able to handle the cartooniness fine. I just think they didn't do it as good as that movie. What I also do like is the cast in this movie. Out of all the Warner Brothers animated movies, this one put the cast on a whole new level. I mean, you had Channing Tatum, you had Zendaya, you had James Gordon, you even had Danny DeVito. That's really good. That's really good casting, and there's a lot more than that. I forgot the rest of the cast members, but it's got a big cast in there. The movie is basically a musical, and while I'm not the biggest fan of the songs, except for that one song by James Gordon, everything is okay. It's got some of the songs have a nice melody to them, though they're not very memorable. Let's get to the negatives. I did not like some of the characters. I didn't hate any of the characters. None of them were unlikable or unbearable or anything. Some of them were not annoying. Some of them were not hateable, but they were just kind of bland and kind of forgettable, especially James Gordon's character. I mean, he's got a few good lines here and there, and like I said, he's got that very funny song, but there's just not much to him. He just seems very typical cookie-cutter main character sort of guy. Channing Tatum's character is also pretty weak too, though his performance in this movie is actually pretty solid. Channing Tatum can be funny, but here he just seems to be out of place. And some of the humor, well, I will say I laughed a little bit more in here than I did with something like Storks or TTG the movie. I can't really say I had laughed a lot here because some of the humor was basically all kid stuff. So yeah, this is basically SmallFoot is basically a typical kids movie, and it's a musical. It's going for the youngest demographics, much like Storks. Though unlike Storks, where Storks had a very bad waste on its potential, SmallFoot at least takes advantage of it. You can tell that they were at least trying to put something really good together here, unlike something like Storks. And I think they did a much better job here than they did with Storks and TTG. So yeah, the characters are bland. The story is not bad, and let's talk about the biggest middle finger of this movie, and that's the message. The message is not bad, and in fact, it's a really good message to kids. But I feel like they're trying to hammer it in as much as they can. They're really trying way too hard to make it stand out, and it just didn't work for me. Maybe that's because I'm not a kid anymore, and me watching this kind of stuff, I'm noticing that the messages that you're gonna tell me that I already know what's gonna happen, and when there's like a liar reveals story, we all know what's gonna happen. The main character's gonna try to fix everything and stuff like that, and it's kind of patronizing, and I hate movies that do that. So overall, SmallFoot's not bad. I wouldn't call it even a cringeful or anything, because let's be honest, if I had to compare this to something like Storks or TTG, I would probably say this was probably either their least bad or at least maybe the most okay-ish film I've seen from this marathon. But it's just so forgettable. there's nothing really much to say about it. Smallfoot had a much better premise, and it did. I will say this one had a lot more going for it than some of the other movies. But then again, it just feels kind of shallow, and it's just personally, I think it's just kind of a mixed bag. Smallfoot, I'm gonna give a 6.5 out of 10. 6.5 out of 10. It has a little going for it, but it just pales in comparison to the Lego movies. So, yeah, that was Smallfoot. I gotta tell you guys something. Storks, TTG, and debatably Smallfoot are probably the weakest films I've seen in this marathon. Especially TTG. I hated TTG. Storks was mediocre, and Smallfoot, you could argue, is too, but I would have to say it was the least bad. Hopefully the Lego Movie Part 2 would be better. Hopefully. So guys, that was Smallfoot. Hopefully the Lego Movie Part 2 will be much better. I'm going to watch that next. Please subscribe, comment below, let me know. This is LTM signing out, and I'll be right back for the marathon. We're going to continue this marathon.
But deliver us.
Contemplen la quebradura.
Peace.